There are a lot of Amazon influencers who have big mouths and big platforms, but their advice and strategies make zero sense.
These Amazon experts would have you believe that 2 plus 2 equals 5 and that their screenshots of $100 ROAS keywords is the reason that they're rich and you're not.
That's why we're breaking down the 7 biggest myths in Amazon PPC that you should completely ignore today on That Amazon Ads Podcast. Myth number 1 is that if you set really high budgets, that you're going to get more visibility, despite what's going on with your bids, despite everything else. That if you just say, hey, Amazon, I'm willing to spend more, that Amazon is miraculously going to give you and favor you in all of the ad auctions over everybody else. This is completely ridiculous. I hear it from clients all the time, and it's been very pervasive throughout the Amazon space. Steven, what do you got on this?
Same goes for high bids. So if the suggested bid range, let's just say Amazon's saying $1 to $2 and you're bidding $3, and because it's a second price auction, you're only ever paying $2.01 or whatever is 1 penny above the second highest bidder. People think that if you're bidding $3 with a $2 CPC, if you go up to $5, you'll still get that 2-cent CPC, but Amazon will just give you a lot more impressions and a lot more impression share just because they like you now, because you hit the magic number they were thinking of or something like that. So with both bids and budgets, yeah, the myth is that the auction is not real, that budgets aren't real, and that Amazon will just award you free traffic and not ever charge you money for it just because you put a high bid or budget.
Absolutely ridiculous. Can't believe people actually fall for that. You could easily test it. I mean, if you increase your budgets and set them really high, it's possible that you spend more and get a lot more visibility, but it's not because you set higher budgets.
Assuming that the campaigns were staying in budget, right? Obviously, if the campaigns are running out of budget and you increase the budget, you're going to get more. But yes, if you have a campaign that is always in budget with a $100 daily budget, if you increase that budget more, you will not get more traffic. Let's go on to myth number 2. Myth number 2, that you will get lower CPCs and higher conversion rates on search terms in auto and broad match campaigns compared to exact match campaigns. So if you're bidding on iPhone charger exact match and iPhone charger broad match, and both of those search terms or both of those keywords get iPhone charger as the query on the other side of that, you're going to have a higher conversion rate on the broad match and a lower CPC on the broad match, because Amazon just, for whatever reason, is making exceptions to the rule where the auction only applies to exact match and everything else is just freebie giveaways. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
This is super annoying. I see this a lot. People advocating, they're like, oh, you want to lower ACOS? Oh, you want lower CPCs? Just throw everything into broad and auto campaigns. And this is like the complete opposite of what we actually do in practice. Like, we should be trying to isolate and trying to get things into exact match. The queries and the product to query relationship is on a search term level. And so there's no favorability happening just by using a specific match type or anything like that. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
All of Amazon's ranking, search engine, everything is based on search query, product, relationship. How relevant are you to that search query? How relevant are, what's your conversion rate? What's your return rate? What are your reviews on it compared to everybody else? That's the end of it. What's your search volume for that keyword? Sorry, your sales volume for that keyword and greater sales volume. They are not just saying that. The reason why you might see, okay, if you have a broad match keyword with a 50-cent bid and an exact match keyword with a $1 bid, and you're still going with that iPhone charger, yes, you might see 50-cent CPCs for iPhone charger appear on that broad match keyword. It's just because the bid was lower. That doesn't mean that you're always going to get that. I mean, you could have gotten a lower CPC there because you got a worse placement, because maybe your exact match campaign, most of the clicks there were coming from top of search because you had adjustments or you had a higher bid that awarded you more premium placements. So you're just getting worse placements with the lower CPCs. Or maybe that campaign never got a chance to fire because or until the very end of the day when most of the other competitors are out. You'll see that a lot of times in the late evenings, CPCs are actually coming down because everyone with the high bids that are driving up the CPCs, all their campaigns run out of budget or they're doing a day parting, whatever. So towards the end of the day, around 10 p.m., 11 p.m. Pacific time, you might see that you get lower CPCs just because the auction is dying off. There's less people bidding, and maybe your exact match campaign ran out of budget. And so now the only search term or the only applicable keyword was that broad match keyword, and that's why you got that lower CPC. So we've done some other episodes on this one.
Yeah, it's just super annoying because there's so many other variables that could have played into why you're seeing lower CPCs in broad and auto versus exact match. But people like to just take these blanket ideas and just apply them across the board. They start spewing them from their platforms, and everybody starts to really believe them. And they're neglecting. They take one screenshot. They have one example of where this certain scenario played out, and they're like, "Oh, that's the case for everything." And they spread that misinformation.
And right before this, Andrew, we were just onboarding an AdLabs user, and one thing we do with the onboarding process is we're auditing people's accounts with them, and we're looking at this account, and 80% or like 90% of all the spend was going to auto and broad match keywords. And when you look into the search terms for like, there's one broad match keyword with like, with like a $3 bid, and or no, sorry, the bid was 90 cents. And you have a ton of search terms in there with super high ACOS that should have their bids reduced, and some other search terms with really low ACOS that should have their bids increased. And you can't do that. You can't control the bids independently on those. So that's why the name of the game with Amazon PPC is you are trying to make things as efficient as reasonably possible. Reasonably is an important word there. You don't want to go crazy into super, super duper single keyword everything. But you're trying to find that balance between being very, very granular, very accurate, very efficient, and still having some room to grow for a little bit. But people who think that you should only be bidding on autos or only be bidding on broads because you get lower CPCs, it is simply just not the case. Let's go on to myth number 3.
Myth number 3 is that product targeting means product page placements. People think that whenever you're targeting other ASINs, that means that you're showing up on other competitor detail pages. And while you might see your ads show up on other competitor detail pages, that's not what product targeting is. Product targeting is actually going after a list of other keywords. Like if you drill into your product targeting ad groups and you look at the search term reports, you'll see there's a lot of keywords that you're showing up on. You're just going after keywords where that product is potentially relevant, showing up on, and you're following that ASIN around into the searches and queries that it shows up on. It does not mean that you're only specifically targeting that product detail page placement on the competitor.
That's right. Yeah, we have a full episode on this titled Product Targeting Isn't What You Think It Is. But the bottom line is that, as Andrew said, product targeting is not the same as placement adjustments. So doesn't matter what you're targeting, you can appear in any type of target on top of search, rest of search, or on product pages, no matter if it's a product targeting campaign or keyword targeting campaign. That's fact. But to Andrew's point, when you are targeting a product, you're not targeting the detail pages. You're targeting a basket of keywords that product is indexed for. And the reason why this becomes so important is because I also saw today auditing 2 different accounts, 2 different PPC managers had campaigns that were product targeting brand defense, targeting their own ASINs. And the question is, do you think your ASINs are only indexed for your branded search terms and nothing else? If that's the case, then that's very bad products and very bad SEO that you didn't get indexed for anything else that was relevant to your product that's not your brand. The bottom line is that you should be indexed for a lot of other non-brand keywords. And so if you're targeting your own product targets in a so-called brand defense campaign, you are also targeting all of the non-brand search terms that your products are indexed for. And that's why we were looking at these, and the true brand defense campaigns that were just keyword targeting their branded terms had super high conversion rates, super low ACOS, but the brand product targeting defense campaigns had ridiculously high ACOS, super low conversion rates, because the majority of the traffic on those so-called brand defense campaigns were from non-brand keywords, which you can easily see just by looking at the search term reports on those. So, yeah, way too many people are just super obsessed with product targeting because they think they're defending product page placements and have no idea that they're hitting a basket of keywords and they're not even exclusively targeting product pages. And also, product pages is usually the worst performance anyway. So they started off with the wrong premise and then executed on it horribly as well. And now they're just getting bad results because the underlying assumption was wrong and the overall strategy was also wrong. So don't let that be you.
All right, let's move on. Number 4.
Number 4, keyword spend equals keyword ranking. Too many people think that ranking on Amazon is as simple as just the more you spend on that exact match keyword, the higher you rank on the page. Andrew, why is that a myth?
Because there are so many other factors that go into ranking on a specific keyword, not just how much ad spend you're funneling into it. Amazon's looking at your click-through rate, your conversion rate, and all types of other things that go into their ranking algorithm, where if you're just funneling a whole bunch of money into a keyword and not getting any conversions, you're actually telling Amazon the opposite of getting you to rank. You're telling it that this
Yep.
product doesn't convert, doesn't create a good customer experience. Therefore, it should actually be ranked even lower. But there are a lot of people who think that you can just rank just because you have deep pockets and you can afford to spend a whole bunch of money on a particular keyword. And that's just not the case. That's not how it works.
The only things that really matter for Amazon's ranking system is, and we've said it before, does Amazon like you and does the customer like you? So to answer that second question, does the customer like you? That means you have high conversion rates, you have low return rates. Great. That's also going to mean Amazon likes you because you're making their life easy. You're keeping things in stock. You have good margins on it. You have good reviews, good ratings, all those types of things. Keyword spending on keywords to rank is still important. Absolutely. Because what that's doing is you are essentially paying for the opportunity for Amazon to collect that research. If it's a very competitive keyword and you're nowhere on page one organically, then without paid ads on that keyword, you will very likely never be on page one organically. But putting some spend onto that keyword gives Amazon, you're basically funding Amazon's research and you're giving them the opportunity to test and experiment with your product for that keyword. And if they end up realizing, oh, this is actually kind of relevant, then they'll start moving you into the higher up on page one of the search. The second thing that I think is very important. Now, it's also worth mentioning. Nobody knows exactly how the Amazon algorithm works. So this is largely anecdotal. So feel free to come at us in the comments and argue with us and say we don't know exactly how the algorithm works. That's true. But we know enough to know that it's not just a one-to-one correlation that the more you spend on the keyword, the better you rank, because we have seen time and time again where no matter how much you rank or spend on this keyword, blowing through ridiculously high ACOS to win paid placements, you can't ever rank at the top of search organically just because the product is weak relative to all of the other products that are ranking well because they have high conversion rates, low return rates, lots of really good reviews. Nothing that you do with the PPC can overcome that. But as I had started to say, sales velocity and BSR. So BSR is pretty much like almost purely just how many units are you moving relative to other items in that category. So if you're just moving a large amount of volume on your product within that category, then yes, that BSR is going to help you rank better on Amazon, especially if you are able to get the best sellers rank. Like the best sellers, if you are the best seller in the product, that just means you are selling the most within that product, and that's going to help you out significantly in ranking. So an ad sale counts towards that BSR sales volume. So that's the main value of driving up that keyword spend is to increase your overall BSR, but it's not necessarily keyword specific. You can drive a lot of BSR on all the other keywords in that category and not that main keyword, whatever is like the most important keyword. And you can still start to rank better organically for a keyword that you're not actually spending on because you're just driving sales volume on a bunch of other keywords. So very important to note there. Anything else here, Andrew?
I don't think so. Let's move on. Number 5. I see this all the time on LinkedIn. People will post this and they'll get a ton of engagement, a ton of people, jumping on the bandwagon and agreeing with this. But it's that ACOS isn't real. That ACOS is a vanity metric. It's not correlated with total ACOS, total sales. Steven, What do you have to say about that?
Well, we did 2 full episodes on this, a part 1 and a part 2, titled "Is ACOS a Vanity Metric?" So highly recommend you go back there and check that out. But the short answer is that everybody who says ACOS is a vanity metric and ACOS is not correlated, they are essentially uh, admitting themselves that they are bad PPC managers and that they don't know how to drive incremental sales with their Amazon PPC. All they know how to do with their advertising is cannibalize organic sales, and they're basically getting caught with their pants down and tattletaling on themselves. So you can know to unfollow those people pretty much right away if you're following people on LinkedIn. Whenever you see someone say that and they're like, "Yeah, ACOS is a vanity metric, ACOS isn't real," you just hit unfollow there and go back and watch our episodes. Unless if you watch those episodes that we made and you strongly disagree with us, then by all means unsubscribe and stop following us, because
See ya.
we'll take full accountability for everything that we're saying there. But we're very certain on this one. So if you do like what you're hearing so far, then make sure you do the opposite and you hit subscribe and like on this video and comment below more myths that you might have thought we've missed so far. But I don't want to rehash that one here because we got the whole other episodes on it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, from a high level, basically, if people are saying ACOS isn't real, there's a lot more going on underneath the surface of their accounts that they are not addressing that is causing them to think that by spending on certain keywords, it's not actually producing any sort of incremental revenue and results for their business. So they're just basically admitting that they don't know what they're doing and they're doing a lot of stuff wrong.
They're doing a lot of myth number 6. So myth number 6, which is loosely correlated to myth number 5 on ACOS, is the myth that if you are not doing brand defense, and let's say you're Wilson tennis rackets, and you don't have any brand defense going on whatsoever, and someone types in Wilson tennis rackets, whatever ads appear up at the top, like competitors, bidding on your keyword, the myth is that you are losing 100% of all sales for your branded search terms to those 3 products. 100% just gone. You have now lost 20% of your entire business revenue because some rinky-dink, cheap knockoff product with 2-star reviews had a top of search ad on your branded search term, and they have now just absorbed your entire business and you're basically bankrupt because you did not defend the brand.
People freak out about this one.
Yeah.
People are so committed to the idea and like it sounds good on paper. Like, you want to protect the brand, you want to defend branded placements, you don't want sales leaking out to other competitors. Sounds great. But in reality, if somebody's searching for your brand and coming to look for just your brand, Wilson Tennis Rackets, they're already pretty committed to purchasing that product from your brand. They're not necessarily considering anything else. And so a lot of people think that those sponsored product placements, even sponsored brands, have a huge influence on what the customer's actually going to do. But the influence happened somewhere else where they got committed to Wilson tennis rackets and they already knew what they wanted to buy. That's why they searched what they searched specifically. And I've done this in practice with brands that get pretty decent branded search volume, and we mapped and tracked the purchase share on their branded terms as we did a holdout test, completely paused all of the brand defense efforts, and we just put more back into non-brand, and we virtually didn't see a whole lot of change in the purchase share on their terms. Like maybe a little bit here, but when you really categorize it in the grand scheme of things, the volume that they're getting relative to what the incremental value is of going after non-brand targets, it was just a no-brainer for us to continue to pour all of that budget that was going towards brand into non-brand, where it's highly incremental and much more beneficial to growing the brand's presence in those non-brand queries.
And what's even worse, the example I was just giving was in top of search, which there is something to be said there that, like, yeah, top of search, maybe someone clicks a competitor ad, they don't realize it's a competitor, whatever. But product page placements already have the lowest conversion rates most of the time, generally speaking. And so the conversion rates are just so low that even for your brand, even with ridiculous brand halo sales attribution, the conversion rates on product pages are still so extremely low. And I can't tell you how many times I've had clients, especially now with Amazon, like they're adding so much onto product detail pages. You got to scroll really far down until you find just like some carousel of sponsored products. And clients will like take a screenshot and be like, what the heck is going on here? We're losing 100% of our product sales to whatever rinky dink cheap knockoff that's down here with 2-star reviews. Like, first of all, you're never going to be able to sufficiently get all of those products off of all of those competitor products off your detail pages. Like, it's just never going to happen. If it could theoretically happen, it would use such an extraordinary budget of just outbidding on everything, and it would just be absolute chaos. And your tacos would just increase by 10x, and it's just really not necessary. And think about it this way, like if I'm searching for, I just pulled this out, but Eclipse gum, right? If I'm searching on Amazon for Eclipse and then I see an Icebreakers ad, if I just wanted gum, I could type in gum and I might go with the Icebreakers. But if I'm searching specifically for Eclipse, then you're gonna have to have a very compelling offer to get me to switch to a different brand that I was not actively looking for. And it's not that it never happens. It doesn't not never happen, but just look at your own conversion rates when when you're bidding on competitors' brands. If you average let's just say a 10% conversion rate for non-brand search, you probably average a 20 to 30% conversion rate for your brand defense keywords, and you probably average like a 1% conversion rate on competitors' terms. And you also have very likely an extremely low click through rate. So if someone does have a competitor bidding on your own brand, first of all, their click through rate is going to be about 90% lower than your click through rate, maybe even worse. And then out of the very, very small amount of people that end up clicking on it, they're going to have like a 99% lower conversion rate compared to yours. So the drop off of the amount of people who are like not even clicking on the ads to then like the very few people who click on those ads, such a tiny amount actually end up buying the competitor's product. Is that really worth your $10,000 monthly budget that's going towards brand defense for larger brands with that are spending that much? And that's the ultimate reason for why your ACOS, kind of tying things back to myth number 5, why your ACOS seems to be like a vanity metric is because you're spending $10,000 a month trying to defend your brand's product pages, which are just cannibalizing all of your organic sales, driving no incremental sales growth, and is making you think ACOS isn't real and that, brand defense is the most efficient tactic. So I think we beat this one up, Andrew, unless you got anything else.
No, let's keep it rolling.
Going on to myth number 7.
Myth number 7 is actually one that I hadn't heard until today. Maybe you've heard this one before, but changing bids every single day will help to keep them active, make sure they don't fall asleep. And in this example you gave me, Stephen, was that this guy said that he was increasing and decreasing his bids by 1 penny every single day, just to make sure that Amazon was still recognizing that he was bidding, he was a competitor on this auction, and those bids aren't getting suppressed because they haven't been changed in such a long period of time.
Your keywords are not like your MacBook that will fall asleep after a few minutes of inactivity. And where I think a lot of these, where most of these myths are coming from, if we were to try to like, especially towards the end of this episode, try to boil everything down to what's the larger issue at hand, it's that, and Andrew and I will admit we're wrong. Like we're okay to be corrected, but from our perspective and our whole point of view for this episode and this entire podcast, this is episode 90, I think. All 90 episodes we've done so far, and from the past 5 or 6 years of Amazon PPC management, with me and Andrew combined, that's 10, 12 years of PPC experience, managing dozens upon dozens of accounts, auditing hundreds upon hundreds of accounts, building PPC software. I can tell you from our perspective, being in the weeds, being one of you guys, there is the Amazon algorithm is pretty black and white when it comes to these PPC campaigns. There's another myth in here we didn't throw in here, but what people will say is that like a campaign, if it's just really old, is somehow more valuable than a new campaign. There's like all this kind of stuff. And it's really not. Amazon's a lot more black and white than people give it credit for. And the rest of these myths are really just a mistake of between like causation versus correlation. So for the person who's changing their bids up and down by 1 penny every day to keep them alive, and you know, he starts doing that. Maybe he didn't optimize bids for like several months, and then he like raises the bid by 1 penny, and all of a sudden the spend just like doubled. Okay, like the next day. What if it was Prime Day? Okay, this is an extreme example, right? The next day is Prime Day. Obviously, like his 1 penny change did not make that happen. It was some other external factor. Prime Day is an extreme example, but my point here is that there are millions of other variables happening behind the scenes. There are competitors products going in stock, out of stock, on deal, off deal, ratings coming in, search volumes are always changing. There could have been a competitor running a massive Facebook campaign that brought in a ton of non-brand search. There's all these other things that happen. And so what we're trying to advocate for is let's just look at things a little bit more as like black and white, and just really take Amazon at face value that like a bid is a bid is a bid, and the auction is real, and ACOS is real, and all of these other perceived anecdotal evidence, whatever you want to call it, like can frequently be explained. Like if every time I raise my hand, like a plane flies overhead, I can assume that, wow, I have the power to make a plane fly overhead by raising and lowering my hand at will. Like, like we have to be a little bit more scientific than that. And so for all of these 7 myths, including this changing your bids by a penny every day, um, it's not actually helping you. When I was trying to explain to this person that, I just didn't think that was the case, he was like, well, what about if the competition is raising their bids, especially like in Q4, then like you have to like raise the bids, by a penny every day. And I was like, okay, that's a different example entirely. Like that, you're just talking about increasing your bids to stay in the auction when everyone's raising their bids. That's different than just trying to keep a keyword from falling asleep. Like Amazon has a giant database that has everyone's keywords and everyone's bids, and they're cross-referencing that against a list of all of the products and all of the ranking for all of those search terms, and they're just pairing together the ranking, the ad rank, the organic rank, and the bid, and they're coming out with a result that gives you the search engine result page, and that is how Amazon works. All these other things, all these other myths are just things that we need to stop putting so much time and attention on. If we took just half of the energy that I see a lot of people already putting into these what we call like the black magic tactics, and trying to game this imaginary like background algorithm, back end algorithm that nobody understands, that we're just trying to like, raise your hand and see if that time made a plane. Oh, okay. When I rose my hand that time, no plane happened. Maybe it was like this. Maybe I have to put up 2 hands, or we just keep experimenting until it's like, oh, that time a plane came through. Okay, so it's 8 fingers or however many fingers I have. Like you could just stop doing all that and just focus on the basics. Focus on good principles, good harvesting principles, good negating principles, good bid management principles, good campaign structure principles. And if you just take that energy and you put it into the things that actually matter, that are black and white, not only are you going to get better results, but you're going to have a much easier time explaining it to clients or to your supervisors or whoever's in charge of you. And you're also going to have a much better time actually dissecting the information for your own sake, so that when performance starts going wrong, you can actually troubleshoot it like we do on a daily basis with our accounts, being able to figure out, where did the spend spike come from? Where did the CPC spike come from? What happened to that keyword? What happened to the search volume? What happened to our products? What happened to those competitors' products? All within this time frame where we're seeing these discrepancies and figuring out what actually went wrong. Whew, all right, I'm going to take a breath. Andrew.
Yeah, man. I mean, you just ranted for a minute, so I don't have a ton to add to that, but I will say that it is super frustrating when I see so many of these like people with big platforms and big reach, and they say these stupid things, like these very ridiculous statements, and people tend to buy it. And for some reason, people are attracted to that. I don't know if they just want to think that they have some sort of new idea or new thing, and that's just like how they're doing their marketing or what. Like do these people who are actually saying these myths and stuff actually believe that? I don't know. It seems like they do, but maybe it's just like a marketing gimmick that helps them continue to put out content or what. But it's super frustrating whenever I see this and people actually buying into it. It's just creating a lot of confusion, and that's why we created this podcast in the first place, to be the signal in the noise, because everybody else is just noise. Everybody else is saying all these stupid things, and we're trying to deliver the facts and the truth and give you real tangible principles that you can actually use to get better performance for your clients or your brand, and overall just have a better experience leveraging Amazon PPC as a tool.
Yeah, and for the record, I don't think Andrew means to call anybody stupid. He's
No, I
saying
do.
the content, the content of what is said is sometimes perceived as illogical, and in need of correction, which is what this episode's about. Largely just because it's a Friday and we're both kind of it's been a long week, but I was overwhelmed with this from this last week with the amount of crazy things I'm seeing people say, and most of the time it just comes down to that misunderstanding of causation, correlation, and what's actually going on. So, like I said, like going back to myth number one with the budgets, you know, you have $100 budget, it's spending on average $50 a day. You increase the budget to $200, and then the next week, it spends twice as much, and there is any number of reasons for why that could have happened. People might not realize maybe like you also increased the bids, or there was an automation tool that increased the bids, and that's why it started spending more, or more search volume came through, or you did a round of keyword harvesting. Like I promise you, it's not because there's magic like in the back end or like, yeah. So, okay. I don't want to sound like a broken record. You guys get it, right? I think you get it. And we would love to hear your guys' myths. So leave comments below. And then, Andrew, we're going to sign off here with one final 8th bonus myth, and I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, here's the myth. It's that AI can outperform manual management. A lot of people think it. It's just not true. Sign up for Ad Labs and we'll show you why.
I think AI can one day outperform
eventually.
manual management. But bottom line is people who are in the weeds, the AI is not sitting in the Google meetings or the Zoom meetings with the clients. So they can't understand the tone of voice coming from the client. When the client says we need to lower ACOS, that could have been said with a very stern, angry tone of voice. That means we need to bring it down today versus, hey, let's start scaling it back over the course of the next 2-3 weeks. And the biggest summary I could think of to like get this myth across, or this point across, is I use ChatGPT to help me draft emails, craft emails, rewrite emails all the time. I would not want ChatGPT being in charge of my entire Gmail inbox and responding to everybody on my behalf, right? That's the difference. Like, use it as a tool periodically to help you be better. That's what AI PPC tools should do. That's what one day Ad Labs will have that in the future eventually. But for right now, anybody who's just giving everything up to AI, yeah, why don't you just give AI control over your phone and let it respond to your loved ones and post on your social media? Like, does that sound like a great idea? I don't think so. So why are you trusting it with your $100,000 monthly budget to make hundreds of thousands of changes on a daily basis? Let's be smarter, guys.
Yeah, and let's just take a step back and say, are these tools that are claiming to have AI as the bid automation, on the back end, is it really like this? Is it ChatGPT? Is it like, what is it? It's most of the time, it's not actually AI. I actually had somebody from another software company who reached out and was like, hey, I like really, subscribe to a lot of the stuff that you and Steven talk about. And, their big push on AI within their own company. He was just basically saying that every single day he has to kind of explain to people that this AI is not really AI. It's just like rule-based automation and essentially lying to
I have the
people.
quote
You have
here,
the
Andrew,
quote?
if you want. I
What
got
is
the
it?
quote. I
Yeah.
just pulled up. It's making some names of the company. We're obviously going to leave that out. But this guy is saying, we are both very much aligned with a lot of the stuff you guys post about, meaning like that Amazon Ads podcast. And he goes, this is from a software company with AI. This AI stuff that people are falling for here is just wild. It's like a daily thing to have to teach people that all of it's just marketing BS right now.
There you have it. It's just marketing BS. Spoken from an AI company, a person working within that company. So what does that tell you?
Catch you guys next week on That Amazon Ads Podcast.
Later, nerds.